Everything happens for a reason. How many times have you heard that phrase? How many times has it actually resonated? How many times did you go back days, months, maybe even years later and realize, wow, there actually was a greater plan to this life event or to this situation or to this decision? You know, for me, the answer is very simple. It's a lot. I've seen it happen so many times in my own life, right? Forget all the stories that I've heard from others, just my own life. How something perhaps didn't make sense to me in that moment. But as time went on, as my understanding grew, as I sort of took a step back, right, and wasn't emotionally invested in what happened, I started to see the pieces come together. And every time that happens, I always look up or I look within and I talk to God and, I say, you have a greater plan. I will never know what it is. No one will ever know what it is, but I trust you in whatever ultimately transpires. It may be difficult. It may be a tough pill to swallow, but ultimately there is no greater feeling than knowing that God always has your back and that everything that does happen does so for a deeper reason. Now, again, that reason might not be apparent. And in that moment, it might be seen as a negative, or it might be seen as something that set you back, gave you some sort of a loss, gave you grief and difficulty. But in the grand scheme of things, you were meant to experience that. That situation, that event was meant to come to your life in order to teach you something, in order to give you a different perspective, in order to make you do another change that would help you on your journey. So don't sort of split up life into these little fragments, into these little pieces that we call weeks, days, hours, minutes, seconds. This is for our own convenience. On the spiritual scale, there is no such thing as 365 days of the year. On the spiritual scale, there is no such thing as birthdays. There is no such thing as life and death, right? It's all one continuum. There's no such thing as moving on to the next day. It's all one continuum. So what may seem like a tough moment in one part of your timeline of your human existence, in another part of it, it's actually a positive moment. And the true sage will be able to step back and see the whole tapestry, the whole timeline, and to realize that there isn't no such thing as a good day or a bad day. There isn't no such thing as a day in general, because the spirit is infinite. Our soul, who we really are, is infinite. So even though our minds cannot grasp this, even though it's very difficult to try to explain this in a video that is ultimately digested by the mind, many of us can intuitively understand that there is a greater purpose, there is a greater design, right? Whether you believe, whatever sort of spiritual belief you might have or not have, I think we all can come to some sort of an agreement that there are forces that are beyond our control. And the thing that's going to give us the most peace, the most satisfaction, and generally the most happiness and success is being able to ride with that, to trust that, to give your full faith and surrender. And not try to resist the flow, because that's one of the things where it may seem natural in that moment, right? We're all humans. We all have emotions. It's very easy to be upset when something that we really want doesn't happen, or something that we don't want does happen. It's very natural. But if you're able to see that, maybe this didn't pan out the way I wanted to, but I'm sure there is a reason to this. And sometimes that's all that you can hold on to, right? Because you're so overwhelmed by emotions, you're so overwhelmed by your thoughts that nothing really uh, makes sense anymore, right? Like, we, not to get into some personal details, but we, as a family experienced a very difficult moment not too long ago. And it happened out of nowhere. And it was obviously a very difficult time for me and my wife, especially. But what we ultimately kind of gained some comfort in is that, God knows better. As much as we wanted that thing to happen and it didn't happen, God ultimately knows better. And perhaps it wasn't the right timing, perhaps it wasn't the right situation, perhaps it wasn't meant to be in that form. Now, does that mean that your faith decreases? Does that mean that you lose hope? Of course we're sad. Everyone's sad. Everyone experiences emotions. That's all a part of being human. That's all a part of this journey. But at the flip side of it, at the tail end of it, there should be that realization that, we're in good hands here. And how can we ever not trust our creator? How can we ever doubt the one force, the one power, the one being that put us here in the first place? We would have never experienced those things had we not even lived to begin with. And yet it's so easy for us to forget that sometimes. It's so easy for us to be upset, to be frustrated, to feel hopeless, to feel like life is not going our way, that we're just getting the short end of the stick. When in reality, God has given us everything. And we need to change our perspective. We need to change our approach. We need to start trusting more. Because all it is a matter of trust, a matter of faith. There are no proofs, right? Everyone's trying to prove that there is a God. And certainly there are many things that we can point to without getting into sort of the philosophical or the metaphysical debates. There are many things that we can prove or that we can point to and to try to understand from a logical or from an intellectual standpoint. But ultimately, it all stems to a matter of belief, a matter of faith, a matter of intuition, right? I've learned, especially in recent years, that my mind, as much as I learn, as much as I read, as much as I immerse myself in so many different topics that are fascinating, that are interesting, at the end of the day, there is an incredible level of wisdom in our intuition that no book, no teacher, no school could ever teach me, or could ever guide me, or could ever help me. So I just need to trust in this intuition more. And as each day goes by, build an even stronger faith, build an even stronger understanding, because this will help me cope with life's challenges. Not just cope, but to actually experience life to its fullest. All the ups, all its downs, to really use this finite time that we have here and to enjoy it. Right? That's the ultimate key to enjoy life, but to ultimately use it and maximize it to the fullest. Not from a material perspective, but from a truly spiritual perspective. We come into this world blank slate. And my goal for all of us is that we leave here completely full, that we experience already the heaven on earth, that we experience already that nirvana, that awakening. That will not only help us through the rest of this journey, but it will help everyone else that happens to be around us and who sees the transformation and who sees what a profound difference this life makes, what a profound difference a conscious life or an enlightened life makes versus just kind of going through the motions, just trying to, you know, do one thing and the next, and not really understanding why we do the things that we do, but just doing it mindlessly. just doing it kind of, without any sort of an understanding. So I want you guys to, I know you've heard of this phrase and term so many times, and sometimes it can be the hardest thing to hear from someone or even from your own self when you're going through a difficult situation or when you're going through something that's not exactly happening the way you would like it to. But believe me, if there's one phrase that you can really benefit from implementing into your daily life, implementing into your routine, implement into your gratitude practice or your affirmation practice, is everything happens for a reason. And if I could make one slight addition to that, it would be everything happens for a reason. And our goal is to hopefully understand that reason. And even if we don't understand that reason, right, there's no guarantee that we will ever understand the greater plan. But at least as we progress forward in life, more of that perspective begins to emerge, right? It's like the curtains to a theater, right? When the curtains are pulled back, you see the actors, you see the sets, you see everything, and you see the whole production. When the red curtains are drawn out, you can't see what's going on backstage. But think of life as this slow, gradual, calm unveiling of what's behind the curtain, right? It reminds me of a phrase that Wayne Dyer used to say, "I can see clearly now," when he talks about in his autobiography going back through the various stages of his life, and now he has that perspective. He brought an example up of how his father had left him, and his mother and his brother, and how all he wanted to do was to be mad at his dad and to desecrate his grave and do all sorts of things. But ultimately, as he grew in understanding and awareness, he realized that, no, I need to forgive my dad. He may have done some wrongs, but I know more. Not in an arrogant sense, but I have a deeper understanding, and I need to show him, even though he's not here in physical form, I need to show that love and that compassion, and I can see clearly now. Whereas before I was blinded by hate, I was blinded by anger, I was blinded by resentment. Now I can see clearly now. Everything happens for a reason. So I hope this message really does resonate with you. I hope you maybe found a different perspective of it, right? Because as I said, we hear it a lot, sometimes to the point that we become jaded. And it's just kind of like something that everyone says, oh, everything happens for a reason, you'll be fine. But don't let that just become a casual phrase for you. Let it be a mantra that you live by every single day. And really take the time to dissect its meaning, to maybe spend some time journaling instances where that was true for your life and you got a sense of what that ultimate purpose was. Believe me, if you start painting these things together, if you start seeing the patterns, you start to appreciate life a lot more. You start to appreciate God a lot more because you see how he works in mysterious ways, but ultimately everything just happens to fall into place. No human, no society, no civilization can ever do what God does with no effort at all. With absolutely zero effort at all, everything just happens to kind of fall into place. And that's none other than divine intervention. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this phrase is something that you can embrace and appreciate a lot more now. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. I always love reading the comments and responding to them. And it's always great to hear kind of the different perspectives. But yeah, if you like this video, please consider dropping a like. It always helps the algorithms. But more importantly, if you feel like you really gravitate toward this channel, please consider being a subscriber. I would love to have you on this journey so that we can continue to progress on our spiritual journey, and that we can continue to develop and hopefully help others that are interested as well. But I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully not too long after this one. Take care.